VTubers, a vast world of piloted virtual characters ranging from those who work for big organizations or indie VTubers that run everything on their own. The ceiling for streaming and content in general when it comes to being a VTuber are truly astronomical. After doing a variety of things in what we consider the real world, I knew it was time for me to push even further with my content by delving into the virtual realm. Over the years, I've combined a lot of my artistry into my videos and streams, and I figured this would be a natural progression that would use all of my skills. For the last 6 months, I've been hard at work to debut my VTuber. That involved designing him, rigging it in Live 2D, making him an entire animated intro, creating a world for him to live in, and finally showing him off to everyone. And all of this was definitely a lot more work and effort than I expected, but the payoff was incredible. So today I want to show you how I did all of that. I figured it was something interesting enough to get into, so I want to show everything from the initial sketch to the final debut, and share my journey with you all in making the flytuber Mark V come to life. So this all started when one day I was drawing some designs of what I wanted my online avatar to be. I had a loose intention of designing a VTuber, but after doing some sketches, I wanted to see where I could take it. Essentially, my inspiration for him is to take my previous flytuber designs and make it something a bit more cool and mature, but still retaining similar design elements. Basically make a cool fly guy. After some time, I ended up making a design that was fleshed out and I was happy with. Essentially, this was the birth of the newest flytuber. But before I was ready to take him into a software like Live 2D to bring him to life, I expanded his design by making a turnaround for him and also extra references like what he would look like without his goggles and headphones and stuff, and draw some extra head angles too. I'll be honest, when it comes to drawing, I'm not the biggest fan of doing more technical stuff like turnarounds, but I figured if you're designing a character, you want to know what your character looks like in every angle, and it would be good for reference sheets if anyone ended up wanting to draw your character or if you wanted to commission specific things from other artists. I was happy with my design and the reference material I had, but I was dreading what came next. Creating a high-res model that was ready to rig in Live 2D. If you don't know what Live 2D is, it's the software that most 2D VTuber models are rigged in to make them come to life, and it was something I was extremely unfamiliar with at the time. I had a lot of learning to do, but I really wanted this VTuber to be made, so I was willing to take the time to figure this intimidating software out. Now, creating a design for Live 2D basically means I have to cut these parts in a way that they could be rigged and move, stretch, and warp in many different ways. You're basically bringing a flat image to life, and it's quite amazing once you get the hang of it. This being my first rig ever, I didn't want to get insane with the way I separated all the layers of my character. Basically, I wanted to focus heavily on everything from the chest up, since that would be looked at the most. I felt like spending dozens of hours making his arms and legs move nicely wasn't a priority, but it was something I could come back and do in the future. Anyways, I had to separate everything. Eyelash, eyeball, iris, eye highlight, hair 1, front, hair mid, hair back, nucleus, brainstem. Okay, maybe not all that, but I did have to separate a lot. Getting everything clean and ready and also symmetrical on this model took so much longer than I expected. I'm used to keeping most of my artwork sketchy, so having to buckle down and make it perfect was a lot of work for me. It didn't help that I was also trying for a style that was a little different than the typical VTuber, so I had to get creative with how I wanted to approach rigging the model, especially when it came to the eyes. Hopefully it'll end up working out. After separating every single thing, it was finally time to bring the flytuber into Live 2D. Like I mentioned earlier, I've never rigged a model here before and it was extremely spooky, but I was willing to learn and I figured the best way to do this was to do it one step at a time. I started with the eyes and made sure they could blink and move around. I knew all the facial stuff would be the most important out of anything. Next was the mouth shapes. You hide all the teeth and tongue and whatnot behind the face and use a clipping mask so it doesn't stick out of your face and stuff. I actually had a lot of trouble finding the perfect mouth shapes for this dude, but eventually I settled with something I liked. It was time to do the head angles now. I had to make him look left, right, up, down, you name it. Some Konami code type shit. I think the hardest angles to figure out were the ones in between, kind of like the diagonal angles. Having the reference from before though really came in handy. Out of everything, this was the most time consuming for me and took the most amount of trial and error just to have it not look too weird and have a good sense of motion. Next on the list of things to do was to make the body and fur match his movement too, and add the ability to tilt my head and body. During all of this process, there was so much trial and error, restarting, not keyframing things correctly. There's just a huge learning curve to this, but after a couple of weeks, I was getting the hang of it. At this point, it's almost done. I just had to add the physics. Basically, there's like a physics engine, and you can tweak certain aspects of your model to use those physics. I used it in my eyes opening and closing to give it a little bit of spice, and of course in the hair and fur movements. The strongest amount of physics was used mainly on the 2 hair strands in the front. And after a month of struggling and wanting to quit like 7 separate times out of frustration, I finally had something I was happy with and could display the amount of emotions I wanted. Of course, it was missing all the bells and whistles that make a lot of VTubers special, like special animations and transformations, bunch of expressions, hand movements. I think just getting a working model that could display the amount of facial movements I was happy with was plenty for now. So something that can elevate a VTuber model from live 2D is that you can use your iPhone's facial tracking chip to help out. You can use something like the Android and NVIDIA graphics drivers too, but from what I could tell, iPhone's face tracking seemed to be the best right now. You could also use VBridger to make it even better, but since I didn't have that many parameters set up, it wouldn't benefit me too much. But yeah, basically the facial capture ends up looking really nice with the setup I had, so I was really happy with it. Testing. Oh, it seems to work. Very good, very good. You love to see it. In total, it took about 30 days to learn the software and rig the model. As tough as it all was, it was cool to now have all this knowledge on the software, and it'll be fun to learn even more about it in the future. Well, that was a lot of effort. Am I done now? Can I debut? Nope, this was just the start. I had so much more I wanted to do to make sure my VTuber debut was something special. Next thing I worked on was the brand new starting soon screen. I wanted to be inside what I called, I don't know, the fly ship, something like that. It's like an airplane. Anyways, I wanted to be in there with my little mascot Floopy, and in perfect fly-in fashion, I'd be asleep at the wheel. I didn't want it to seem too static, so I animated it a little bit on a loop. I painted the inside, and there was two other things I wanted to do with the environment. As you can see, there's a giant CRT in front of Floopy. Well, I wanted to put a chat box in here. With some filters and plugins, I got it to twist and bend the right way to make it seem like it was inside the CRT. I don't know, I just thought it would be fun. That's usually my thought process for designing anything. Just, is it fun? Last thing I wanted to do was put a green screen behind the ship's interior so I could put any video behind it. So basically what I did was put almost 2 hours worth of random videos that made me look like I was flying in it. So clouds, Kingdom Hearts gummy ship, Subway Surfer, you name it. This way my audience would have something new to look at each stream for the most part. And there it was, the intro screen done. This in total took me about less than a week to finish. But what was next on my to-do list was going to take me much longer. So I wanted to recreate the first ever Bleach intro from 2004, but centered around the flytuber and all the memes and references we've built up over the years on stream. At first, I wanted to do this purposefully shittily, you know, kind of a style that's super rough and silly intentionally, but as I got into it and put in all this effort, I was like, well, shit, I'm already this far, I may as well actually make this look decent. So I got to work. Each scene was flyanified, if you will, basically replacing Ichigo with myself and all the little bits and pieces with characters from our extended universe. This intro may seem simple, but it was deceptively complicated to recreate, especially considering I was animating it all in Photoshop. I know that sounds crazy, but it's not so bad, and a lot of the transitions and stuff in the Bleach intro could be done in there a bit easier. I was gonna plop it into Premiere after for some extra effects anyway, so it would be okay. But yeah, there are so many little things in this intro that you might not notice at first. That was very time consuming to do. All the little portraits, the things flying around the sky, the different character poses, it was a lot. But it did mean there were a lot of opportunities to sneak in a bunch of Easter eggs that my chat will see over time. Not only did I want to use this in my debut, I kind of wanted to set my stream up in a way where every stream starts with the Bleach intro after chilling in the ship for a bit. Kind of like each stream is a little episode of a show or an anime. Probably my favorite scene from this intro is the one where there's all the characters outside at the basketball court and it rotates between them. I had a lot of fun with that. Another reason why I was okay with spending a lot of time on this was that I repurposed the scenes where I was falling from the sky as my new BRB screen, and one of the transitions in the intro I ended up just using for the stream transition between scenes. After about a month of hard work, I plopped it into Premiere, added finishing touches and filters, and I was done. The intro and all my other little assets were ready to go. It was time now to create a background for my character to essentially live in. I wanted to do something very compact and cool and a little animated, so I went for a very Hong Kong, Inkopolis, Ghost in the Shell inspired city with moving signs, stuff flying ahead, a giant Gachapon machine. I just wanted it to feel a little alive and animated. Honestly, I want to do a lot more with it, but I'll focus on expanding the world the flytuber is in the future. Overall, I was happy with the end result. Only a couple of things left to do before the big debut. I plopped in a new chat overlay, new emotes, sub badges, new panels, hell, even a new logo. And it felt so good having everything put together and ready. The last thing I did was make a video for my community, something that drops before the Bleach intro during my debut as a way to merge me into the virtual realm, and I did a little slideshow explaining all the different things coming to the stream. It was finally time. I set the date for my debut by dropping a teaser, all while still working on little things here and there. I don't usually get too nervous, but I was very anxious and nervous about the debut going right. To put all this effort into something and it not going the way I wanted, it was a looming fear for sure. took about 6 months from the concept of the flytuber Mark V to it being debuted. I was working on it on and off while doing other stuff, but towards the end I was really focused on getting everything done. And then the debut began. I was so pleasantly surprised that so many people showed up to check out the flytuber and support the reveal. It was such a big change, I was afraid people just, weren't gonna like it or weren't gonna vibe with it, but it was cool to share the Bleach opening, the model, the background, everything, and receive a positive reception. It's really something I'm not ever going to forget. Right now, puppeteering my VTuber feels great, and I'm really adjusting to the new virtual lifestyle, but there's so much more I want to do. I want to create a huge world and a fun and super interactive stream. I'm going to try my best to do that while still pumping out some fun, flying content on this channel. I know I've been on hiatus for a while, but hopefully now you see why, and I hope you guys enjoy the journey I took to bring this VTuber concept to life. I'll see you guys soon, and if you want to see this character in action live, you can always find me at my stream. See you, Fly Crew.